Good morning, class number 11 in the Maimer Bati Legani. You are now in Yeshiva Or Tamimi Mikfar Chabad, and this is Rabbi Bolton speaking. And we're learning, we're almost finishing the third paragraph of the Hasidic discourse called Bati Legani, where the Rebbe explains how the whole world is in our hands. The purpose of the world is to make God revealed over here. And how do we make God revealed over here? Well, it happened before. When God created the world, that's the way it was. God was revealed here. And it happened again when God gave the Torah. And it happened again when on a more permanent basis, when they built the tabernacle. And later when they built the Holy Temple. And now each one of us has to be a holy temple. And we have the ability to bring the Mashiach into the world, who will build the third temple. And then godliness will be revealed in a permanent way. And eventually in the raising of the dead, which will be an ultimate revelation of God in the world. So now, but the Rebbe now is in the third chapter says an essential ingredient in this is our attitude. We have to have an attitude of what's called shtut. Shtut means craziness. A person has to be crazy for God. And that's the only antidote, or the only way that we can transform. That's the power that is going to transform the craziness of this world. And how we get so tremendously excited about this world. Good. We can see, first of all, there's an interesting thing. One way you can see how crazy people get about this world is in the advertising industry. Very good. In the advertising industry. In fact, my wife used to have a very big advertising agency. She advertised, of course, for the religious sector. So her advertisements were more directed toward the reality and the practicality of the product. If she was selling toothpaste, she had to, instead of saying that it makes your teeth shine, you'll be beautiful, she had to say, cleans your teeth, dental hygiene, excuse me, dental hygiene and health, and of course, maybe even foremost, that it's kosher, that it was kosher. In other words, how the thing actually helped you serve God in some way. But in general, in the world, it doesn't really go that way. For instance, in the world, it is forbidden to advertise a person smoking a cigarette. Because even though people know that smoking cigarettes are bad for you, and it even says on the bottom, on each package, and it used to say it on the advertisement, smoking is bad for your health, and it still does it. But despite all that, you cannot advertise a person smoking, because if people see someone smoke, as it forces them to smoke. In other words, the world, by its nature, is such a lie that we don't even care if it's a lie or not. In other words, it convinces us that our life is also not worth anything. You see a picture, it's just a picture, and it's telling you to do something bad, and you know that it's bad, and you don't really want to do it. But millions and millions of people are trying to stop smoking. They can't. There's people that even succeed in not smoking. But once they see a picture of someone smoke, it encourages them or entices them or maybe even forces them to smoke. And there used to be a thing which was called subliminal advertising, which they made it forbidden, that they would flash for a fraction of a second, a fifth of a second, a picture of a person smoking, or a picture of a person drinking Coca-Cola, and a person wouldn't know why, but he had this tremendous desire to drink Coca-Cola or to smoke a cigarette. In other words, the world, by its nature, is admittedly false. It's false, and it makes you feel false also, and you don't care. And that's the even biggest false, is that you don't care. That way you don't care, that's the biggest lie of all. And and you feel that second, that the whole purpose of life is only to smoke, and that you'll get what you want by smoking. You'll get some sort of a nice car or something like that. So it says the Rebbe, that's what's called shtus of this world. That's called craziness of the world. And the only thing that's really going to convince you not to crazy for the world is craziness of holiness. In other words, to transform it. It could be that a person all of a sudden gets it, wow, I'm smoking, this is crazy, I'm fooling myself, and he stops smoking. But generally speaking, it's not so simple. I'll even tell you about myself. When I was in university, I used to smoke about 3 packs of cigarettes a day. It was a very heavy smoke. They used to say the joke that it saved you money on matches, because you just light one from the other one. And then one day I thought to myself, the reason that I'm smoking is because I need to smoke. And that's stupid. I don't need to smoke. I can live without smoking. And I'm telling you, in one day, I stopped smoking. Then after that, this is 20 years later, maybe even more, I already had become a religious, observant Jew. I was married. I had children. And I thought to myself, what's the problem? I can smoke 1 cigarette a day. It's nothing wrong with smoking 1 cigarette a day. There isn't. I started smoking 1 cigarette a day. In no time, within a month, I was up to a half a pack a day. And I saw I was getting more. Every time I wanted to sit down and learn, I smoked a cigarette. Every time there was a cigarette, a telephone call, I smoked a cigarette. Every time I was talking to someone, I smoked a cigarette. You're walking down the street, you want to sit down, I smoke a cigarette. All of a sudden I found that if I don't smoke a cigarette, I felt very nervous. And I figured, okay, I'll stop. This is ridiculous, I'll stop. And I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to stop, I felt just terribly nervous and tense. And I figured, it's not worth suffering so much. Just 1 cigarette will do away with it all, right? And then the next day, after I smoked the cigarette, then I'll do it, right? And it took me almost a half a year to fight a battle that I would stop smoking. I would stop I would stop for an hour, stop for 2 hours, and then I would feel so. Finally, it was like Rosh Hashanah and then Shabbos afterwards, or something like that. Some holiday. There was 2 days of holiday, and then Rosh Hashanah, or 1 day of holiday, and then Shabbos afterwards. I stopped smoking anyway, which is also very interesting. How you can, not have any desire to smoke when Shabbos comes in. Doesn't make any difference. It shows you how psychological it is. And then finally, I made a battle and I stopped smoking. Right? But that's smoking where you could see clearly that it wasn't good for me. I could see clearly, and nevertheless, it was hard for me to do it. How much more when a person becomes totally swamped down by the world, and he does things that he thinks are good for him. He thinks there's no other alternative. He has to. So says the Rebbe, that's the insanity of the world. Our job in this world, Hashem made the world this way purposely, and He made human beings this way purposely. Our job as human beings, and our ability as human beings, is to not only not go after the craziness of the world, but transform the craziness of the world. But in order to transform the craziness of the world, you have to have craziness for the truth. You have to have craziness for the truth. Which the truth is, we said, is God. God is truth. God is life. God creates us. God enlivens us. God creates the whole entire world constantly. God puts meaning into everything. By thinking about this and thinking about this, especially before you pray in the morning, especially before the Shachrit says that the Shachrit, the morning prayers, which they are designed by Anshe Knesset the Gedolah, who are very holy tzaddikim, to elevate your heart and elevate your mind and make you crazy for God, for the truth. That you want to be a truthful person in every second of your life. And then you can not just get away from the world and be a monk or something like that, or you can transform the world. You can actually be in the world, and you can use the world for holy purposes, for godly purposes, or for the purpose that they were created for. Okay. Now where are we? We're on page 5, right? Page 5. Yes. So it says, why is this? Because a Jew does not want to be, and he's not able to be separate from God. But what happens is that the world so entices him and engulfs him that he does not feel the goodness of doing the commandments. And also he doesn't feel how bad it is when he does a sin. Okay, let's take it the first word. We got pretty far down here, didn't we? Okay, the last word on the line is nefesh elokis. We'll do it quickly. See, it's like third of the way, 2/3 down. Hine, behold, a nefesh elokis, the godly soul. See where we are? You have it, Kobe? The last word on the line is Hey Nun Hey Aleph. Page 5. You have page 5? Good. 2/3 down. Good. Hine, behold, a nefesh elokis, the nefesh of the godly soul. What is the godly soul? Elokus is godliness, be'etzem mehuto, in its essential being. Ubefrat, and especially hanitzut shabo, especially the spark There's the essence of the godly soul, which is, as we said before, the chachma of the godly soul, the highest aspect of the godly soul. Maybe we can turn this thing off, the air conditioner, please. Huh? It's really warm. I feel like an old folks home there. Very good. Okay. This is anitzus aprati. This is the individual spark hashayach, which is relevant guf or aprati to your individual body. This is the essence of your Jewish soul. This is where your soul plugs into the essence of God. Sha'al yado, that by means of this spark of godliness in your Jewish soul, whom margish, you feel b'kol and yanim in all things, eloki, that are godly. This is the most inner, personal, intimate essence of your soul, of your being. Your eye, your true eye. Your true eye, your true Jewish eye, is the feeling of God. Now that's one big difference between the Jews and the non-Jews. The Jews have as an inheritance from Abraham this faith in God. It's a natural, it's an essence of their soul. And a non-Jew can intellectually come to faith in God. But it's not an intuitional, essential thing in their soul. It's not an essential thing in their soul. A non-Jew can realize that there's God. A non-Jew can understand that there's God. And from his understanding, right, he can feel the truth of the idea. But a Jew can feel the fact because it's part of his soul. It's a part of his essence. So even a Jew that doesn't even think about it, sometimes it'll just flare up inside of him, this faith in God. He's willing to give his life for God. Even a Jew that doesn't believe in God, right? Suddenly he knows he's a Jew. Suddenly something flares up inside of him. Umargish me'od, and the Jew feels very much the davar and a thing, shehu, that is neged elokus, against God. Hainu, namely the davar, that a thing, she'eno elokus, that is not godliness, begiloi, revealed, eno rotzebo, the godly soul does not want it. Ubefrat, and especially, did we do this yesterday? Kobe, you see where we are? You with me? Ubefrat, and especially, bidavar, first word in the line, yes? Bidavar, and a thing, shehu, which is mineged al elokus, which is against God. Uboreach mizeh, and he runs from this. The godly soul runs from anything against God, keboreach, like one who runs midavar hamazik, from something that damages. In other words, take an example, saying lashon hora, saying bad things about other people, or even hearing bad things about other people. He doesn't want to hear it. It feels to him like fire in his ears. He refuses to listen. Uka'adam, like a person, haboreach, that runs mimavis, from death. The borur lo, that it is clear to it, to the nefesh alokis, to the godly soul. The godly soul feels clearly the misa ruchnis, that spiritual death, Rahman Atzlan, who kashe, is worse, yoter, more, misa gashmis, than physical death. Right? And if you don't believe it, then tell a reformed Jew, or a reformed rabbi, that you're not a good Jew. Not a Jew. The guy will get angry, right? I'm just as good a Jew as you are, and it feels very... What does he feel so? Because Judaism is important to him. He doesn't want to be separated from God. He says, I don't believe the same thing as you. We have different ideas. Right? Different ideas about what religion is. Different, but I'm a Jew just as good as you. What do you care, right? A guy who's not a Catholic is, I'm as good as Catholic as you are. He doesn't go to church. Doesn't do any of the things that the Pope says, whatever it is. This guy would say he's a good Catholic. It's nuts. He'll say, I'm not a Catholic. Okay, so I don't believe in that religion. I believe in another religion, right? But these people, they don't do anything it says in the Torah, but Judaism is important to them. It shows that what the godly soul is active, right? It's clear to him that spiritual death, that not being a Jew, is worse even than physical death. He's even willing to sacrifice his life for it. He might not even know. He might not even know himself. Right? But when it comes to Judaism, he's going to fight. They say that in the 6-Day War, when the Israelis took over the Kota, the Western Wall, as the soldiers all stood there and they cried and they said Tehillim, and most of the soldiers, if not all of them, were totally non-religious. They were totally non-religious, even anti-religious. They came from these kibbutzim, from the Shomer HaTzair, from the left guard, it was called. Shomer HaTzair, from the young guard, I'm sorry. They had pictures of Stalin on the wall. They believed in communism. They believed in no God, Boganit, there's no such thing as God. That's what they believed. And suddenly they got to the kotel, they got to the wall, and they started crying. And they asked them why. They couldn't explain it. They didn't know why. What happened? And what's the kotel after all? It's just a wall, right? If some people tried to explain it was a hard battle. No, so why didn't you cry in Caesarea? And there were other places that were harder battles, right? What was the one? And I heard once, I went to, there's a place which is called Givat Tachmoshet. It's a place, and they have a movie over there. It's a movie. It's like what is it called? An audio-visual presentation over there about the 6-Day War and the battles that happened in this place of Givat Tachmoshet. It's there near Yerushalayim, or in Yerushalayim. And they have over there the commander, the general. It was very, very emotional. If you hear it in Hebrew, it's better than in English. In English, it wasn't so successful. But in Hebrew, the general that took over the Western Wall, his name was Matagur. And he was not an observant person at all, absolutely nothing. And he said there was a recording, maybe it was on the radio, whatever. And he said, we are coming into Jerusalem, into the old city. We've taken over the Western Wall. He said the place where the Jewish people have longed for thousands of years. And the next one is, he said, I am now standing by the Western Wall. I'm touching the stones. He said, I am not a religious man, and I've never been a religious man. He said, but I am very emotional. He said, very emotional. When he said it, he said, Ani lo ish dati v'af pam lo hayiti v'ani mitragesh. He said, Ani nogea ba'avnei hakotel v'ani mitragesh. He said, he was almost crying. It was a video, yeah. It was a video also. So it was very, and it was all of a sudden the godly soul wakes up. Why does he care about a pile of stones? And there was just recently, it was the Prime Minister of Israel, the guy's name was Ehud Barak. And he was willing to give the Arabs everything they wanted. Really, he was willing to give them 99% of what they wanted, but he couldn't bring himself to give the kotel. He couldn't give, and the kotel's nothing. Right? They already have the other side of the kotel. What's the big deal, right? So the religious people yell and scream. Who cares? Let him yell and scream, right? What does he care? He was leading the government. He had everything. He would give the religious people something. Couldn't bring himself to do it. And because of that, the Arabs said, "We're not going to do it. We're not going to accept it. We're not going to give it." Afterwards, he said, "I don't know why I did it. I wrecked the chance for peace." Stupid. And then the Kotel saved him, because they would have taken the whatever they would have gotten and made another, Gaza Strip. They would have shot rockets at us. They would have just been closer to us. But in any case, he believed in this peace thing. He thought he was going to give the Arabs, and there was going to be, total peace, and they would be grateful to him forever, and they would change their minds, and they would start teaching in the schools to love the Jews and everything like that. That's what he thought. But he couldn't bring himself to bring the Kotel. What was the Kotel worth to him? Absolutely nothing. I don't know if he ever even visited it, except for sometimes they make ceremonies there. But that's the godly soul. The godly soul somehow or other feels clearly that godliness is a good thing. It's a real thing. And that the opposite of godliness is terrible. V'kol chukaso. The first word in line is chas v'shalom. V'kol chukaso, and all his desire. V'chepso. All of his desire is lust or desire. Hu elokus. The whole desire of the godly soul is in godliness, v'la'asot, and to make kalim, vessels, le'elokus, to godliness. V'kol gasos, and any type of, how do you say, gasos? What's the word for gasos? What's gasos? Gasos means like to be, how do you say? No, gasos, in English the best word I can think of is to be it's called crass. Crass, gasos means thickness, right? It means thickness. But it means thickness of spirit. What's wrong with being thick? So thick. Right, thickness doesn't mean kasus doesn't mean to be thick in mind. In other words, to be stupid. To be stupid is not a crime, right? It's not a good thing. It's no give, but it's no crime to be. Gasus means a person is grub. In Yiddish they say grub. A person is like very animalistic. Like animalistic. V'chumrius and materialism. Yeshus is egotism. Umetzius and metzius is selfishness. Of the nefesh habahamis, of the animal soul. Right? Because what is the animal soul? The animal soul feels, I exist. Harihu, behold it. Mechase covers, umastir and hides. Umalim and conceals. With us, Kobe, you have a pen? Al an hergish, the feeling of the nefesh elokis. This is the key word here. The key word here is feeling. What do you feel? Right? What do you feel? If you see that somebody's car is burning, you say, oh, this is terrible. If you all of a sudden look in the flames and you see it's your car, all of a sudden you feel differently. It's a different feeling. Right? A person that sees a Jew eating not kosher food. So if you hear that the person is not Jewish, so what do you care? He can eat whatever he wants to. If you hear the person is Jew, it makes you feel bad. If you see the person, it's your brother, you feel even worse, right? If they tell you, well, you just ate the same thing, right? I ate it because I just saw you eating it. Then you really feel terrible. The whole thing is feeling. You feel. Or in the language of Kabbalah, if you want to, it's called da'at. What you're attached to. What do you feel? Do you feel godliness, or is it like somebody else's car? Ubepashtos, and simply, who it is, as that, their gishmak, that the pleasure from Welt, from the world, Olama, the world, another word for world in Hebrew is Olam, Shehu Ha'elem, which is concealment, is mechase, covers, master, and hides, oif, on, dem hergish, the feeling, Eloki, the godly feeling. Shazehu, what is that book? That's this book. What's the okay? Shazehu, that this is Hepech, the opposite. Hakavana, the intention. Mamash, really. Mima, from what Shahayasa was. Kavana Elyona, the upper intention, God's intention. Elyona in this case means God. Bebriat, in the creation of the world. Semicolon. Dinis Ave, what was God's intention? Dinit Ave, that God desired. HaKodesh Baruch Hu, God desired Liyot Lo, that there should be for him, Yisparech, Dira, a dwelling, Batachtonim, in the lower worlds. The God wanted to create a lower world, and he wanted us to make him visible here, and felt that it should be felt here. Al Yadeh, by means of Avodata Adam, the service of man, the goof in his physical body, the nefesh habahamis, and his animal soul, or in simple language, his natural personality. To use your natural personality to serve God. In other words, to be an individual, to be yourself, to be unique. How do you be unique? By just saying, I want to do what God wants, and you'll see things will happen in a unique way. Well, liyot, and to be bolam in the world's this world, or the bororo, and to refine and to purify it, or the sachacho, and to refine it. That this world should be a pure, refined world. That's why God put us in the world. So that when you're in the world, the non-Jews will learn from the Jews. Maybe Akiva, you don't need the book now. Maybe after. Thank you. The non-Jews will learn from the Jews what a man is for, what is a woman for, what is food for, right? What are you supposed to use your video, your computer for? What is money supposed to be used for? Right? They'll see the Jews, they give charity, they cheat each other, they do what God wants. right? They're faithful to their wives, they're faithful to their friends, they don't lie, they don't cheat, they don't say bad things. People say, this is amazing. Look, these people get along. They don't do these bad things that are fun. They don't watch, full contact battles to the death on television to see how much blood they can see. You can live without these things. They don't take drugs. These people, they don't take drugs. There's no crime here. There's no prostitution. How can a person live in such a world? This, right? They see, yes, it's possible. They enjoy it. All of a sudden, they realize, hey, this world is God's world. These Jews just believe that the world belongs to God, including themselves. Right? That's pretty good. Right? Then if people are like that, then nobody's going to be sad anymore. Nobody will be depressed. Nobody will get angry because it's God's world. It's not your world. What are you getting angry about? It's God's world. People will be excited about God. They'll start to love God. They'll start to feel, like it says, a person that he's excited about the world, it deadens his feeling of how good it is to do a mitzvah, how wonderful it is to learn the Torah. He feels learning the Torah is not just learning like doing a crossword puzzle, God forbid. Right? He feels, it's something, you're doing what God wants. Right? You're doing what Hashem wants is amazing. You start to feel it. It feels different. It's like you won a car. It's your car. This is my God. This is the God who's creating me. I can feel it. I can do something for him. This is a wonderful feeling. That's why God created the world. But actually, came exactly the opposite of what God wants. Instead of us being an example to the whole world of what's good, the whole world becomes an example for us of what's bad. That's why all these Israelis leave Israel. Right? They're all spread all around the world. God forbid, all these terrible places we found. Criminals are sitting in prisons all over. Why? Because in Israel they teach them that's reality. Right? That's what the Zionism was. The Zionism was have a good time. Right? If you're in Nazi Germany or these places where there's anti-Semitism, you can't have a good time. They won't let you have a good time. We'll make our own country. We'll make an army around. Then we can have a good time. That's the purpose of life. Suddenly people started saying, hey, if I want to have a good time, why just here? I'll go to France. I'll go to Amsterdam, the Bangkok, God forbid. Right? That's the Israeli dream. That's the Zionist dream. They have a good time. Have a good time over there. And that's why they leave in droves. Right? They leave over there. And luckily, the Rebbe foresaw this, and he put Chabad houses all over the place, so that these people, when they want a kosher meal, they want once to pray, or they want the first time in their life to put on tefillin, they go to a Chabad house. But what happens? Exactly the opposite. The world mastir, excuse me, mastir hides, etzlo bayim, al ora emes. The world covers over the light of truth. V'nis'ava, and a person becomes thick, insensitive. V'nisgashim, and material. So much, until she'nechsar etzlo, that there is lacking by him, kol chush, any feeling, me'ahirgish, kol sense, chush is a sense. Me'ahirgish of the feeling, the Rebbe says, anika feeling, which is called feeling in Yiddish, binyanim, in matters, ruchanim, spiritual things. Shezeh, that this ball comes, besibas and nefesh Bahamas, from the animal soul. This comes from the animal soul. What's the animal soul do? Animal soul just minds its own business. So what's its business? Its business is to be an animal, right? To get a good pleasure out of the world. Shehu kavua, that the animal soul is set, v'mushrash, and rooted in yane olam, in matters of the world. That's the animal soul. And this is kol mahuto ve'nano. This is all of its being and all of its, how do you say, purpose. So in short, it means a world with no meaning other than the world itself. Right? There's no meaning. The meaning of the world is maybe success, maybe have a good time, have a good feeling, but there's no deeper meaning. Maybe if you like it, you can help other people, if that's what makes you happy. Whatever makes you feel good. Right? Like the saying in America, the parents would say, if it makes you happy, right, the kid, it makes you happy, then that's good. Whatever you want, it makes you happy. I just read that in talking about Amsterdam, in the community as the chief rabbi of Holland, they just suspended him. Did you read that? They suspended him because he said that we love homosexual Jews also, and they can be cured. There's a way they can be cured, and it's forbidden according to the Torah. But we love everybody, every single human being, and every single Jew. We all love them, and this is a condition that can be cured. It's a sickness. He said, "What? Sickness can be cured? This is a natural tendency of a human being. This is a nature of a human being. You can't say that." In Holland, we're different. For instance, the people in Holland, they have this thing. Excuse me. If you look in the Shulchan Aruch, you see that technically between eating meat and milk, most people wait 6 hours. But technically, some opinions say you don't have to wait at all. You don't have to wait. All you have to do is just make blessing after the meat, make an after blessing, and you wash out your mouth, wash off your hands, rinse off your mouth and eat something, and then you can eat milk immediately. But most people keep 6 hours. But there's some people that keep in the middle. Now, the people in Holland, they keep only 1 hour. So he says, here, we keep only 1 hour. We're different, right? The people in Holland have a different attitude toward the Torah and toward the mitzvahs, right? They have a different attitude. We keep 1 hour. And so therefore, we also have a different attitude toward this terrible thing. But the fact of the matter is it's totally against the Torah, right? So just because you keep 1 hour doesn't mean that you don't have to keep Shabbos. You have to keep Shabbos, right? The homosexuality is just as bad in many aspects as not keeping Shabbos, right? The punishment is the same punishment. It's a terrible, terrible, awful thing. And in some ways, it's even worse. It says it's an abomination. But that's not the point. The point is one of the things that says in the Torah clearly that it's forbidden. Not keeping Shabbos is not so clear. It's one of the 10 Commandments, but it's not so clear. You don't know when Shabbos is, which day is Shabbos. It says you have to keep the Shabbos. Maybe you don't have to keep every Shabbos. Maybe one Shabbos. Right? It's not really. It doesn't say clearly what is not keeping Shabbos. Just as you shouldn't light a fire in your places. It doesn't say anything about not writing or not tying knots or anything like that. It doesn't say it clearly. But this it says clearly. It says clearly twice, 3 times. It says clearly. Okay, that it says it clearly doesn't make it worse than anything else. But it's just a thing that any fool can just look at the Bible and see that it says it clearly. Understand? But why is it that they get mad at a rabbi? Because nefesh habahami is the animal soul. The animal soul says, let the guy have a good time. What's the point? It's the purpose of life is having a good time. Why are we Jews? Because we enjoy it. Right? Why do we enjoy it? We don't have to give up our enjoyment for Judaism. Judaism is for us. We're not Judaism. Right? Who says that? The animal soul says it. The animal soul says it. The godly soul will say, I'm even willing to give my life, everything I have, not just my pleasures, my whole life I'll give for Judaism. If necessary. I don't want to do it. But if necessary, I'll do it. I will want to do it. He says, there's the battle. Can we really take the animal soul and transform it? Yes. That's the job while we're here. He says the animal soul is rooted in matters of the world. And in it thinks, it contemplates and thinks, and speaks, with a life, hergish and feeling. Right? You see how people talk about the baseball game or about this. You see people you ever see people, I saw once I remember when I was young also, but now it's really big. Wrestling. Everybody knows it's fixed. And the crowd goes berserk. You ever see it? They go crazy. They're standing up and they're yelling, get out. Right? We're talking about thousands and thousands of people. Right? And they know that the whole thing is this. And it's foolish even if it wasn't fixed. The whole thing is foolish. But the people go crazy, wild, berserker. Right? In America, the sports, people go crazy over sports. Right? So good you want to go to sports. Right? You can have competition. It's sometimes a good thing, and it keeps you healthy. Right? Sometimes it's good. Why not? What's wrong with it? But there should be such a... go crazy about it. Who wins? And they fix games. Oh, sure, they're violent. They're violent. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay, listen, it's no big sin. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just the idea to show how people get excited from a picture. Right? There's another picture. I do it too. It's not that I don't do it. Right? That's why I don't have a television in my house. But television, I'll get hypnotized by it. No problem. Right? See a good movie with good actors, right? You want to see what's going to happen. It's not even a movie anymore. You're watching something you'll never see in a million years in real life, right? There you go. See? Nevertheless, what happens is you get caught up. All of a sudden, maybe I shouldn't say it on the video, but that's the fact. And he'll think, v'yadaber, and speak b'chayos v'hergesh, with life, with a grace geschmack, with a tremendous pleasure. Asher hergesh, great geschmack. Asher hergesh zeh, that this feeling, b'chalalu, so in general, page 6. Page 6 is the opposite side of page 3. Page Gimel. This feeling of what? Of the desire that you have from the world, ubefrat, and especially in Yananoam, especially the pleasure, the gishmak, sheyesh lo zeh, that he has in this, hu sholel, this negates et ha-hergesh aruchni. This negates any spiritual feeling. That's the thing that's wrong with it. That's the thing that's wrong with it. Not that the world is bad. The world is not bad. The world is what you make of it. Right? The world is what you make of it. If you want to make the world bad, in other words, if you allow yourself to be taken over by the world, then the world is bad. But on the other hand, the world is very good. The world is where we're put here. We're put here in the world to use the world properly. There is the pleasure that he has in this. Sholel, the pleasure that you have in something, sholel, negates at the hergish, the feeling, baruchnis, spiritual feeling. Vayikarhu, and the main thing is, mipene, because of hakrirus, the coldness of the animal soul. The animal soul is cold. What does it mean it's cold? The etzem kaltkeit, the essential coldness in inyanim ruchnim, in spiritual things. Rav Meputov has told me that it was a big difference. He was in Russia. He was also there when the Germans came in. There's a big difference between the Germans and the Russians. He's a Russian like a Cossack. He could kill people all day. Women and children, babies, everything killed them. And then at nighttime, he would sit with his friends. They would all get drunk and they would cry. I killed a baby. I killed a woman. She pled for mercy. He felt so bad about it. But he would get all drunk. Yeah, Cossacks, because they would kill because they were hot-blooded. They were hot-blooded people. But in the evening, when they didn't have hot blood, there was no one to kill. They would sit around and they would cry about, right? I killed somebody's mother. I killed a baby. They would feel terrible how they did it. And in the morning, they would wake up again, hot blood, and they would go and they would kill again. Then says, but the Germans, they would come in cold, no emotion whatsoever. They'd line everybody up, right, shoot them all, take a little break, smoke a cigarette, wash off their boots, maybe a little blood splashed on it or something, right? They would go back after a little break. They would maybe eat a meal, and shoot people again. Right? People would fall. In other words, coldness. Coldness. A person was cold. Now, if this German discovered that by mistake, one of the people on that line was his daughter, or his brother, or his son, this Nazi would say, "Oh, I killed, let's see, my son, my brother." We go crazy, right? Why didn't you go crazy for these people? Because for this guy, he had a feeling. For his brother, for his son, he had a feeling. For these people, they had no feeling. In some ways, not having a feeling, being cold, is the worst thing in the world, right? The Germans, it was the best thing in the world. It was the best thing to be cold, like a brain surgeon. A brain surgeon, you can't get emotional. If you want to save the person, you have to be very cold. You have to, right, be able to cut, not care about it's not a human being. You just have a job to do. You do your job perfectly. That's very good. That's a very thing. It's very cold, right? They believed that everybody that wasn't German or Aryan or whatever they believed in was evil, and they were just making an operation. They were taking it out, removing the growth or whatever it was. It was a very cold thing. It had to be very cold. He says that's the essence of the animal soul. The essence of the animal soul is, I exist. If you can benefit me, then you exist too. If not, don't exist. Right? If you're like me, then you exist. If not, you just don't exist. Anything different from me, I'm cold, total coldness. And every Jew has that inside of himself. Everybody. Every Jew has that inside of himself. A coldness, not feeling, except for the Rebbe. That's what we believe, except for the Rebbe. Rebbe is the only person that doesn't have this coldness. But everybody has a certain degree of coldness to something, right? To something in Judaism, to some person, to some this, that you just don't care. You don't care. Wake up late, don't care. Say what you want to, do what I want, don't care. Why? Because of the world. The pleasure of the world, a person is willing not to feel godliness, not to care. He says that's the etzem kultkeit. That's the essence of the animal soul, is coldness to spirituality. Mipenei, because, why is it cold? Mipenei, because shehu bahami. It is an animal, the etzem hu, in his essential being. Coldness to spirituality. The shmo mochiach alav, that its name, the name of the animal soul, proves on it. And who was really one of the biggest sinners in this aspect of taking away the feeling for spiritual things were the philosophers like Spinoza. Spinoza was like one of the big ones. He removed this feeling for the spiritual. He said everything is in man's mind, and maybe a little bit above man's mind, but the main thing is your mind. What you can conceive, what you understand. That's, nature is reality, maybe a little bit above nature, the sum total of nature or something. But there's no God, and there's no meaning, there's no commandments, there's no reality. Right? And like Nietzsche and those people, they said they tremendously respected Spinoza, even though they felt he went a little bit too far about God, things like that. But they, right? Kant and those people tremendously respected him. The ideas that he had, these wonderful ideas that he wanted to put everything in man's mind. The man was the center of all reality, that it somehow came from you and it was from your consciousness or consciousness. But the main thing is there's no reality outside of you, so to speak. For sure there's no God and there's no values and meanings except for what you put there. You just put and it could be that you were programmed with certain values because that's how man was made, maybe come through evolution or something like that. Right? That was the whole German idea. This Viktor Frankl, he said that the Nazism was not invented. If you ask me, it wasn't invented in Munich beer halls, but it was invented in the universities in Vienna. Shmo mochiach alav, that the name of the animal soul proves on it. Nefesh abahami is called the animal soul, and that's what rules the whole world. Kol chayuso, all of its life, v'hergashaso, and its feeling. Who is rak only benyanim behamim, only in animal things. Ukamosha anu roim, and like we see, bamuchash clearly, the yesh anashim, that there are people ke'elu, like these. I share that. Lavad zod, not only. She'em, are they. Reikim, empty. Michachma, from wisdom. Torah, and Torah. Umidos yesharos, and straight personality. In other words, they're willing to yell and lie. Hine, behold. Maaseim, their deeds. They are like animals, and this can be also religious Jews. That they are like animals. Do with me, Kobe, please. First word in line is behema. We're 6 lines from the top of the page. Shadorsim, what's this one? Some people are like this. Dorsim, that they trample. Umaligim, and scoff. Rahman Aslan, God forbid. And yanim, from mattress, ruchanim, spiritual. Dorsim, that they trample, umaligim, and they scoff, they laugh, Rahman Aslan, mi'inyanim ruchnim, from spiritual things. I share that, ein la'em shum musag, they have no concept, klal, at all. Harihem kabehema mamash. They are like animals mamash. Now, like I say, it can be also a person who's religious. It can be a person also who believes in God. But everything he does down deep inside of himself is for himself. So anybody who gets in his way and anybody who's not exactly like him or doesn't agree with him, he'll trample over, says, Haholchim, they go v'doreset, and tramples mibli havchen klal, without any discerning at all. So it could be that you go and you learn classes and you learn Kabbalah and you learn Hasidus, and you have a beard and you have tzitzis and this, but if somebody gets in your way or somebody disagrees with you, then you don't want to hear what he has to say, you don't care what he has to say, you're against the person. You're against them totally. And this is the opposite of what the Rebbe is saying over here. The Rebbe says that the godly soul feels the goodness in everybody and everything. And it could be that sometimes when a person has to be punished or whatever it is, that then if so, you have to sift through it 1,000 times and see really, should you get mad at this person? Should you say not good? Is it really a commandment? And nevertheless, like the Rebbe says in the 32nd chapter of the Tanya, it's a mitzvah to love him also. You have to try to find the good in him. How do you do that? It says that the whole essence of the Torah is to raise the soul, the spiritual, over the physical. The spiritual over the physical. To be interested in what God wants and not what you want. That's the Rebbe says that's the whole name of the game. By doing that, then you become a holy temple, as we will explain more, God willing, next week.